Welcome to episode 406, Bernie Madoff, $50 billion, 50 years Ponzi scheme. This is an outline of episode 406.
The biggest fraud of all was Bernard Madoff, who stole some $65 billion, perpetrating the largest Ponzi scheme in history.
Mr. Madoff, what do you say?
There are two reasons why we study Bernie Madoff. First, at age 80, he's still alive. Second, he holds two world records on Ponzi schemes, $50 billion and 50 years. I'm going to assume here you know what is a Ponzi scheme. Now, here's one of my favorite U.S. presidents, Abraham Lincoln. You can fool all the people some of the time, and some of the people all the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. But Madoff is an evil genius. He managed to fool the SEC, Nobel Laureates, Hollywood movie stars.
It's the scam of the century.
Like most investors, he was introduced to Bernie Madoff by a friend.
You practically had to have an embossed invitation testifying to your worthiness to invest in Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme.
It was a privilege to invest with Bernard Madoff, which of course it would just catnip. He would do them a favor.
That was a genius of marketing, wasn't it? He made it seem so exclusive that no, you can't get in. Well, maybe you can get in.
There were people that tried to place money with Madoff that couldn't even place dollars with him. He wouldn't take them. You had to know somebody, a friend of a friend, who had some influence for Madoff to accept an account. I mean, this was a classic Ponzi scheme in every sense.
Now, how did Bernie Madoff get his credibility? He was the chairman of Nasdaq 3 times. First in 1990, and then again in 1991, and then in 1993. Next, how did his Ponzi scheme come to an end?
There is one guy I want to mention that wasn't fooled. Harry Markopolos. He's an accountant that started looking at some of the returns and saying it didn't add up. The returns were impossible. He told the SEC and they never followed up on it. They should have, but they were fooled in the same way the investors were. I think they figured the idea of a Ponzi scheme this big was just ridiculous and wasn't even worth investigating.
First of all, there's been a lot of discussion about, the speed and everything else like that. There's no reason that the average investor has to worry about that. The fact you can still make your investment decisions, and the fact that a market goes up, goes down 300 points or up 300 points, it's a scary event, and you would always assume that there's something going on that you don't know about. But take my word for the most part, you can ignore all of those moves. Because if you go back historically, you look at the long-term performance of all of the marketplaces, it really doesn't matter if you deal with the real world that you have to deal with. If you ignored almost anything that's happened in most of our lifetimes, at least the people sitting around here, you would be fine had you just held on. So
in 2009, at the age of 71, Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in federal prison. While Bernie Madoff was in prison, 2 of his sons died, one by suicide and the other through cancer. And now a brief recap of the early life of Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff was born in 1938 in New York City to Jewish parents. At age 21, he married his high school sweetheart, Ruth Madoff. Together, the Madoffs had 2 boys, a nice 10. In 1960, at the age of 22, he graduated from Hofstra University and started his own business. No remorse.
Not remorse, but contempt for the weakness of the victims.
But did he seem that he was ashamed of what he had done?
I don't think so.
Former New York City Police Department Detective Nick Cassell spent day after day with Madoff this spring, hired to accompany him to court and guard him in his apartment. Cassell told 2020 he saw little emotion in Madoff about anything, even the deaths. Madoff is a classic antisocial personality. His consultant.
You have no conscience.
You have no guilt. You have no feelings about what you're doing to people. You think you are entitled to what you are getting.
Madoff told people after his arrest that he began cheating customers in the 1960s. As the scam grew, however, so did the life of luxury for Bernie and Ruth.
We've seen nothing from her that has publicly expressed any regret, contrition, sympathy for the victims.
No, because I think she's been basically taught and educated by him that, look, we can make money off these saps.
Madoff also made sure to reward his faithful employees with big salaries and big parties. A 3-day shindig at the beach near his summer home in July, with Bernie and Ruth holding court from their beach chairs. And a Christmas where in the early days, at least, former employees said there were topless waitresses and lots of sex and drugs, with Bernie smoking marijuana.
What have I learned today? There are many celebrities who lost a lot of money to Bernie Madoff. For example, Elie Wiesel, the Nobel Prize laureate, lost 100% of his life savings to Bernie Madoff. Also, actor Kevin Bacon lost 100% of his savings. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave your questions and comments below. My next video will be Bernie Madoff, 10 lessons. Wishing everyone peace and prosperity.